Peer group, like anything, is what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. One of the most important things that you can have from a mindset standpoint is being vulnerable and allow people to see what you're struggling with, culture or whatever, those things that you can bring into the group and really get feedback on is where the sweet stuff is.
This is the PMP Industry Insider Podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome out to another episode of the PMP Industry Insider Podcast, where we take a look at what is changing in the pest and lawn industries, and we take you to the front lines to those that are driving those changes. I'm Donnie Shelton, owner of Triangle Home Services, which has Triangle Pest as well as Triangle Lawn. And with me is not the initial announcer, Mr. Dan Gordon. Dan, would you like to say good morning? Actually, it's afternoon now. Say hello, introduce yourself, our sponsors, and our very, very special guest.
You bet. So, hi, this is Dan Gordon, PCO bookkeepers and M&A specialists, accounting and business brokerage services for the pest and lawn industry. And before we start, let's thank our sponsors. Big shout out. If you're interested in marketing services, whether a digital or brand awareness, you would get in touch with Colmarch. And actually, right now, they're offering a month free for podcast listeners. And they are at colmarch.com. And if you want to take advantage of the offer, you would add a /podcast to that. And then our second sponsor, who has been a sponsor for quite a while, is insurance specific for the pest industry. That's Pestsure, providing tailor-made policies for pest and lawn. Pestsure understands the risk and business of the business and offers coverage that fits your needs. Learn more at pestsure.com. And for the very best in voice services that is specific to our industries, reason I say that is because it plugs into and works well with most of our CRMs. That would be Voice for Pest, and they are unparalleled in voice solutions for PCOs and lawn care operators of any size, coast to coast. Learn more at voiceforpest.com/podcast. And if you're interested in one of our peer groups, and you might be, because wait till you hear our guest today, you could go back and listen to episode 136 for more information on our peer groups. You can visit us at pmpindustryinsider.com/peer group, or peer groups plural. And did I? How many screw ups did I do? Like 3?
You know what? I'm not. No, you're good. You're good.
Right.
It's like some days I feel like messing with you, Dan. This is not one of them. So I'm gonna give the time to our
your
guest.
fish to fry.
Yeah.
So anyway, today we have a special guest. He's actually been a client of ours, of PCO Bookkeepers, for quite a while. And he and I meet once a month to go over his numbers and his operation and whatnot. And he also is a member of one of our peer groups. He is out of Austin, Texas. The name of the firm is Justice Pest Services. It's Caleb Cunningham. And he purchased the company back in 2012 when it was one-man operation. And since then has grown it to about $3 million. Caleb, again, is part of our PMP Industry Insider peer groups. And we're excited to hear about his experience as a member and share the lessons that he's learned. So welcome, Caleb. How was that without screwing it up?
Sounded pretty good to me. Thank you all for having me. First of all, this is exciting, and I'm really glad to be here.
Grateful to have you. Yeah. Definitely grateful to have you. Yeah. And I mean, for our listeners, you should hear the story, which I think you're gonna talk a little bit about it. But I met Caleb when he was in the peer groups. He's still in the peer groups. And looking at this number, this is quite a bit different. The $3 million number is quite a bit different than when you first started in the peer groups. And so, anyway, so congratulations on that. Why don't you start, Caleb? Just give everyone a little bit about your background and then how you got into pest control in 2012. And then kind of like what the business looked like.
Yeah, what did you do before this?
I was going to say, well, I can guarantee that in 2012, the business was not $3 million because no one-man show can run a $3 million company. So let's start
except for the triangle tax. So.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's correct. We were a one-man operation back then. I first out of school, I went to Texas A&M and got out of school and thought I was going to be a commercial real estate career, And so started out on that path. I went and worked for a small real estate developer doing pro forma financial analysis and a little bit of brokerage and a little bit of whatever was needed to be done. Left there and went and worked for a group that was trying to buy pools of distressed real estate loans through the Great Recession, and found myself ultimately kind of stuck in a cubicle working for a couple of people where I didn't see a whole lot of future in my, or a whole lot of upside in my future. And so I was daydreaming about wanting to own a small business. Didn't necessarily have pest control in my mind, but so I would sit there and get on all these little websites and dream about owning a business. It turned out that there was a one-man pest control route that I found on the internet that was the owner actually lived in my neighborhood, and he was looking to retire. And it's funny because at that time I was a white collar employee. I had my collared shirt and khakis and whatever dress shoes that I would wear to work every day. And so even though I'd found this listing online, I didn't obviously view myself as a blue collar guy, and it was going to be a pretty big shift to go that direction. I did schedule a meeting with him, and reached out, and we met up. And
did you show up in a suit?
Yeah, that's what I was
no.
Did you show up like no? Okay, good. So you read the room.
Yeah, I didn't. But right. The middle part of me took a little while to come around. And so anyway, I went and met with him. He was able to answer a bunch of my questions. He was looking to retire or at least slow down enough, where he could have somebody come help him. And so we struck up a relationship. And I remember leaving that. We met a couple of times, but I emailed him. I drew up my own little letter of intent. And I emailed it to him, and he signed it. And so I thought, holy cow, here we go. So that was how we started. This was in the summer of 2012. So right at like 13 years ago. And the day we closed, he handed me the cell phone. Of course, first of all, let me back up. He agreed to stay on and train me, convert the customers, get everybody used to seeing Caleb instead of him. And so we had that part of, arranged into the deal structure. But he handed me the phone on that day that we closed, and the phone started ringing to me at that point. I had never seen a termite before. Didn't probably never heard of a German roach, or for sure never seen one. Didn't know anything about scheduling. So there's a lot of funny stories in there about, the phone ringing, and I would just say, yes, we got an opening on our schedule tomorrow. And that person's across town. And, we were kind of all over the place in the beginning, but that was how we started out.
So when you sent that LOI, you didn't expect him to sign it?
It was, I'm not going to say it was half cocked. It was, I was there, but, when I was looking at businesses, I wasn't looking at a one-man pest control route. I had a more grandiose ideas of trying to run an actual business. And so this one was interesting. And I will say, I feel really lucky, that it was pest control, because it could have been, any of these other number of businesses that don't have the same industry that we get to enjoy. And that part just got, really lucky to hit on. So
what were some of the other industries you were looking at?
I looked at a janitorial services business. Looked at like a sign company. I don't, just a bunch, whatever was out there, just kind of had fingers on a bunch of different stuff, and it just happened that this one was the right one.
I have to say something real quick because this is pretty funny. I had a very similar experience. I bought a one-man show. I mean, I've said this on the podcast multiple times. The guy, he had 23 accounts, 12K in revenue per year. And I will never forget, I met him in a Wendy's, and he looked at me, and this is an old dude. He's probably like, I think at the time CB was probably 81. And he legitimately looked at me and says, boy, what in the hell are you doing? And that's exactly how he said. He said, boy, what in the hell are you doing? And I'm like, yeah, I want to do this. And he just thought I was as crazy as could be. And, but he did sell to me. So I just, when you were saying that and he handed you the phone, and I just took me back there.
Yeah,
the pressure's off.
Yes, right.
I had some similar experiences with friends and family that didn't get the shift, but
Didn't see the vision. Yeah,
it made sense to me at least.
Oh my gosh, my family, when I told them I was going into pest control, they thought I'd lost my mind.
Yeah.
Yep. Same on my end for sure.
Okay.
For sure. Go ahead, Dan.
So anyway, so what were some of the pivotal moments or decisions that helped you get it bigger? Because you didn't go in it to run a route, right? Although you probably ran a
Well,
route.
hang on. I missed it. How big was the business when you got it? Like how much revenue were
I,
How
you
many?
I
doing?
think he was doing like low 200s, like 220, something like that.
Not
Gotcha.
terrible
Okay.
for one
Yeah.
route.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's
Yeah. It
making
was
a
a
pretty good
full-time
living.
job for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So how long did you run the route before you decided it's
Oh
time
boy.
to go?
I didn't get out of I was in the field for 10 years.
What?
So when I first came to y'all's first peer group meeting, I was still in the field a little bit.
I remember this.
And
Mhm.
so, it took me a long time to kick that one. And part of it was that uh, uh, I just wasn't very good at giving it up. I didn't mind being out in the field. Number one, number two, uh, I still had some of that. Well, only some people, certain people could do things as good as I can, and so I would let myself only go on certain accounts and kind of held on to it for a long time. Um,
Uh-huh.
so that was, it took a little while for me to get out of my own way. I mean, the other thing that coincided with that, well, let me say this: I was afraid to get out of the field, because I didn't know what I would do with myself if I was in the office all day long, and how I would fill up my time. And so there was part of me that held on to it because I didn't know what else to do.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so what coincided with me getting out of the field and kind of uh, getting into the office was getting help. So I went to the WorkWave conference in Orlando in 2022, January, and heard Dan speak. And actually, you too, Donnie, both of y'all were there. And left there and had really spent that. So that was kind of right at the 10-year mark, plus or minus, and had spent most of that time kind of bootstrapping by myself on an island, where I was working harder than I wanted to work. I was working a lot of weekends trying to catch up on paperwork and never really, uh, I wasn't working much on the business. As they say, so I was kind of just chasing whatever's coming up the next day and trying to put out fires. And so the idea of scaling and getting bigger in my mind at that time meant that I would have to work that much harder than I already was. And so that's kind of what made me afraid to want to grow, even though we did grow. We continued to grow, even though I was, in spite of all that, we did grow some, but we weren't scalable past where we were. And so it was really kind of that. I view that conference as a pivotal moment for me, where I think I left there and reached out immediately to Dan, and got signed up for PCO bookkeepers, and then immediately inquired about peer groups or what else I could be doing. And that was kind of the start of the second. That I kind of view it as a two-part career in pest control so far. Part one was kind of by myself, and then there's this whole new chapter that opened up once I started to get help from other people.
So who's running the office while you're on the road?
When I was out in the field
Yeah.
at that time,
Yeah.
I had a couple of ladies here. We had a couple of CSRs that would answer phones and do that kind of stuff. But I was still doing rodent work and still doing certain pest control accounts that I was still taking care of at that time.
So they were running the business and you were running a route.
Well, that's maybe a good way to say it. I was trying to run it, and we did fine. I mean, we continued to grow and get to where we got, but it just, like I said, it wasn't scalable, and it wasn't, it wasn't what I wanted to continue to do forever, because I was so high stressed and
Mhm.
just spent every day trying to put it all out. So
That's like the hardest part too,
Yeah.
right? Is when you're pushing that line where you're running as fast as you can, and do I have enough money to hire a manager, and do I have enough money to come inside? And
And you
but
can't run any faster because you're
right, exactly, because you're
hundred
pegged
percent.
already. Yep, yep,
yeah.
yep. Well, awesome. And so let's talk a little bit about growth since then. Obviously, that's where you started. It started a couple $100,000, and you talked about how you kind of had this inflection point. Um, what do you consider to be some of those decisions that you made to help you scale and to help you go from that 200,000? I mean, we kind of talked about some of them, which I agree with. And by the way, this is not me pushing our peer groups. There's any peer group you want to join, I think is important as a business owner. For me, I view the peer group I'm in as kind of a board of directors, right? I'm going to come back. I'm going to talk to them. They have no, um, they have no tie back to me, meaning like,
And no
they have
filter when it comes to you.
no filter, right? And they're going to tell you what they really think. And sometimes that advice is good and sometimes it's not. I mean, certainly, I know Dan and I remember one particular member of our group, we were adamantly against the decision, and it turned out it worked out for the owner, right? I mean, so my point is that I think, having a board of directors, having some folks that you can kind of bounce ideas off of, at least for me, has helped me significantly. But what would you consider to be some of your pivotal moments, pivotal decisions that's kind of helped you go from that couple 100,000 up to 3 million now? And I'm sure you probably have bigger plans beyond that. But what would you say those are?
For sure. Well, the underlying theme absolutely was getting outside help. And the shift from trying to white knuckle it and do it all by myself to I joined one of y'all's peer groups, which has been absolutely instrumental in my journey so far. I'm a member of another peer group. I use Sherry, pest control business coach, and meet with her often. And so all those things really help combine getting outside advice and helping me with seeing things in a completely different light, and not trying to solve problems on my own. And none of this is new, right? It just took me a while to get there on my own. So having the help and having people that are a couple of steps ahead of me, give me advice and shine the light on, that it's okay to go up on your increase prices. You're not going to lose all your customers. I mean, there's 100 of those examples where you have it made up a certain way, and you can't make all those mistakes on your own. So trying to get the outside help was by far the biggest change that I've made. And the other thing, just from a mindset, when I was out in the field, I was we all have a lot of windshield time, and I was kind of listening to country music or sports talk radio all the time. And about that time that I kind of transitioned in 2022, I immediately was listening to y'all's podcast or any other podcasts I could find, and books on tape, and really taking advantage of windshield time was another huge transformational thing for me, where I just started taking advantage of downtime here and there that I just wasn't utilizing correctly or, as efficiently as I could.
For those that are listening, that right there is probably one of the most golden piece of advices I think you'll probably hear.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give, but I
Books
mean,
on demand, Audible.
well, I mean, just the idea of constantly, seeking, right? Constantly like trying to, I'm not a fan of reading books just to read books. And if you read enough, you start realizing they pretty much all say the same thing. But at the end of the day, there might be like one little nugget, that you grab out of one, and it changes everything. And so it's almost like this relentless, search for something, but don't ever stop. And I think that one change there of, instead of sports talk and, country music to how do I get my business? I mean, that mindset and that constant awareness, it makes a big difference. Because I can share. I used to fly in the military in the reserves, and I was in the reserves when I was building my business really early on. It was an hour and a half to get to the base and an hour and a half to get back. And anytime I flew, it was a book, right? I had a book on going down. I had a book, and not to give Dan a big head, because we all know he has a fairly large melon already. But I remember the little program he had with, was it Jonathan Yee or whatever? I listened to that thing like 6 times over and over again. And then I listened to E-Myth. I just remember those times very fondly, because in the moment, man, I was fighting the fire, right? I mean, every day I was going in and there's another disaster.
Well, it's interesting because you get into these peer groups and you get into talking with industry people, and your mind shift switches from getting the job done and maybe getting a paycheck to, oh my gosh, I'm building something that could be worth millions of dollars. And
right.
And then as you really start to develop that thought, so when you got to the peer group and you heard about, I guess you were in the peer group. We had a couple people sell out of there. Um,
There's been a couple of people exit. That's correct, and then obviously a couple of new faces, uh, uh, but yeah, there's been a couple of that have moved out and checked their box for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you know that this is an industry where if you do it right, and I'm not saying that you have to exit, but you build some serious wealth, right? And
If you
a
do it
lot
the
of the
right way.
if you do it the right way, and a
Mhm.
lot of these peer groups, you know, uh, help quite a bit with that. But can you explain what the commitment of a peer group? What do you just show up, or how do you you got homework? Tell us about your. Well, I know what my
There's a quiz. No.
I know what
Yeah,
I know what we run them, so I'm not I'm asking this from your perspective. Like do you bring an apple for the teacher?
Right.
What do
for
you?
sure. Yeah, no, you gotta keep David happy first of all. So an apple or whatever compliments you can give him is a good way to start off. No, I mean, you know what? A peer group, like anything, is what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. First of all, and I think one of the most important things that you can have from a mindset standpoint is being vulnerable. I think you can. We can all uh, put the rosiest picture that we can out there and let everybody pat you on the back and say, "Oh, great job on this or that." But it's really when you become vulnerable and allow people to see what you're struggling with or what growth or cancels or turnover or culture or whatever those things that you can bring into the group and really get feedback on is where the sweet stuff is. There's also a ton of value that I get at least in putting together y'all slide deck and getting prepared for the meeting. I always feel like by the time I've shown up or take, the computer alone time that I spend trying to put the slide deck together, I've already learned a ton about, stuff that needed to be brought to the surface uh, so that just I find super helpful before I've even talked to another person. Um, but I definitely think the mindset of being vulnerable and then being also willing to put your full mind and energy into what other people have going on and really make sure you share your knowledge. We can all just accept the knowledge from others, but if you're, it's only a good group if everybody's kind of sharing at least somewhat equally with each other and trying to
Hang on, Caleb.
give
I
and
got to
get.
pause you real quick because you have said just some really good stuff, and I just want to emphasize it for our listeners because it is gold. The first one is, and I don't. Hopefully, everyone caught this. I mean, when you think of a peer group, it's not a showroom, right? It's a service center, right? I mean, you're going there to like work on the business, not to show it out. Save the showroom for the bar or wherever it is that, your spouse, whoever you want to, or maybe even Dan, I don't know. But in any case, save that, for someone else. But you're absolutely right. Like you go there to address problems and to look for them. And then the second thing that you said that I think is really critical is that oftentimes when you're in a peer group, when you present and you're talking to folks, you want them to pay attention and you want them to really focus in on what you're doing. So the point is that be that person back, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes I go to peer groups and I see folks who they're kind of checked in, they're kind of checked out, they're checking email or whatever. And I'm not saying in all peer groups. It just my point is that if you commit to it, to your point, number one is recognize and be willing to show the dirt. The second thing is be willing to give of your time just as much as people are giving time to you. So really critical points that you said there. I just want to emphasize that. So continue on because
The other thing, which in our peer groups do it, and maybe some of the others do as well, is we have a templated deck that you
Mhm.
have to fill out. Caleb had kind of talked about that, but this templated deck has certain KPIs, certain questions. So everybody comes with the same questions and not the same results, but the results that were asked of them so that the conversation can be on an even plane. And so that's really, really interesting. Um, what do you think? as far as, uh, I guess, there's certain things that you can learn at the peer group. Hey, we just bought a new phone system, or we bought new computers. Should it be Dell or should it be something else? And that's easy, right? But what about the leadership and those qualities? What do you get from that?
Yeah. Becoming a better leader, focusing on culture. And I'll kind of hone in on culture because I don't think we had a bad culture before it was something we started really emphasizing, but it has improved a ton since then. And so just getting other people's ideas about different ways that they're building up their team and creating camaraderie and creating a culture of learning and growth and all those kind of things has been huge for us. From a leadership standpoint, I think there's, if nothing else, there's the idea of just thinking strategically and really, so if I go back to the version of myself that was in the field and only trying to put out the fires for tomorrow, how much better is our team if I can spend my time thinking about what's, 2-3 months up the road, much less, 3 or 4 years up the road, and trying to navigate this company to the direction we want it to go instead of just, taking wherever the wind is taking us. So being able to take control of our future and trying to plan strategically has been, a big one for us for sure.
So when you got into it, so I know you and I do a bunch of monthly calls, and we look at budget numbers and for the future. So when you got in it, did you, and I don't mean anything formal, did you have a budget? Did you say, you know what, I'm buying this thing, it's a couple 100,000, in 5 years, it's going to be $1 million, in 10 years, it's going to be 3 million? Or did you just, how did you think about that?
Yeah. I will say that I did not. I had the idea. I knew I didn't want to be in the field for the rest of my career. I mean, I started out knowing that, okay, I don't think I'm going to go broke out of this thing. And so, because it had recurring revenue and whatnot. So I thought the worst case scenario is I won't be able to grow it and I'll be stuck in the field indefinitely until I can sell it or change direction if it doesn't work. But I didn't have a very specific plan of how to get myself out of the field. No. And that probably contributed to why it took us a while to kind of get over the hump for sure.
And, now that you're there, can you talk through any specific decisions that you've made, as a result of, some things that peers have told you, or, being in a peer group that you've learned, like just specific examples of like, hey, I was here, I have this meeting, someone said this, and this is what I did. Good or bad, by the way. It didn't have to be, I'm not looking for the rock star story here, but just I'm curious. Like, obviously you go there and you get this feedback. You don't have to take it, you don't have to follow it, but what are some things that you've done as a result of some of these meetings?
Yeah, I hit on a big one earlier, which was price increases. And that was something I was, afraid to do, like a lot of business owners are. And then, you get everybody else in the room saying, hey, here's a letter that we sent out to our customers. Here's how we did it. Hey, we had like 7 cancels out of, 800, and it was not a thing. And so that was a big one. Little stuff around, but not little, but just shift in mindset and sales around bundling services, thinking about service frequency and what that can do to your gross margin as far as, thinking strategically about the number of times you're going and what that means, how many techs you're going to have to hire to service that number of accounts. When we first joined the peer group, I didn't have formal SOPs. We had very loose operating SOPs, but not a tight ones. And so, again, in order to scale and in order to get the business where it's scalable, we had to kind of wrap our arms around SOPs and proper way of doing things and that kind of stuff. Termite baiting is another big one, and we got into Centricon since joining the peer group, and that was a huge catalyst. Was again having other people talk about what it's done for their business, what it's done for their customers. Obviously, the recurring nature and your ability to add that service to customers. I mean, before that, we were just doing liquid treatments reactionary whenever someone had termites instead of doing preventative services, so, and then probably the biggest one, and this is a tip of the hat to Dan, was understanding my gross margin. That was not something that, I was looking at the bottom line and, knew whether or not we were making money, but breaking it out, obviously the way that Dan does, and really seeing what decisions I was making were affecting my gross margin in a negative manner, was a huge pivotal point for us, and trying to run the business differently than just kind of by the seat of our pants.
Gotcha. So let's talk a little bit about the future. What are you thinking now? Obviously you've joined the peer group. You've kind of shifted your mindset. You're doing a lot of good things, it sounds like, and you're starting to see the results in your business. What's kind of on the forefront now for Justice?
Yeah, I mean, I'm having fun. We're gonna keep doing it. I would love to see us, become a $10 million business at some point, and I don't think that's, I think that's achievable for us. I can tell you that whatever we do, we'll be getting help from someone else forever now, instead of trying to do things on my own. So peer groups and outside help is going to be a huge thing, forever. So
Branching out outside of Austin, outside of Texas, or just, I mean, there's plenty of business in Texas to become a $10 million business. And
yeah, we won't go outside of Texas. At some point we're going to expand our footprint. Right now we've been able to continue to grow inside our footprint. We don't service all of Austin at the moment, so we've kind of got our little irregularly shaped, service area that's kind of what we try and stay in. And right now that's worked for us. But at some point we'll add on to that, and would love to do, the right acquisitions along the way if that can help get us there. But main focus will be, just continue to advertise and grow and concentrate on sales and taking care of our customers.
I know we're getting towards the end here, and this is not necessarily on our outline, but I'm just curious to hear, what are some challenges you're facing right now? I think for some of the folks that are listening, my guess is that they're either in kind of your revenue category, or they're coming up to it. What are some challenges that you're dealing with now that's just kind of top of mind at your size and then kind of where you're going?
A big focus for us right now is developing future leaders. So we have a service manager, we have an inside salesperson. We need to be developing, have runway or a pathway for our current technicians to grow into some of those senior roles and ultimately grow into another service manager. And so that's something that we're really working, that is in the works but not yet implemented, is getting and then of course, when do you hire the next CSR? When do you hire your next inside salesperson? What does my role look like, and how do I continue to delegate out of my current role? Those are kind of the big things. Whether or not, you guys just did a podcast on this not too long ago about whether to have one main mothership or a bunch of little satellite offices. And so that's kind of something that's on my mind about, how do you combat or, strategically grow with Google in mind and having a bunch of service centers out there versus the culture of having one main office. It will be something that's, we work towards in the coming years.
Yeah. Dan, what do you got before we finish out here?
Well, since I meet with Caleb every month, I know that his goals are pretty lofty and they will be achieved. We've seen plenty of people do exactly what you want to do over time. And I mean, the margins, Caleb's being kind of shy about how good his numbers are, right? So there are $3 million businesses, and then there are $3 million businesses, and his does very, very well in terms of hitting on all the KPIs. And so, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Caleb, really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Really appreciate you sharing kind of just your experience and what, specifically around peer groups and some of the things that you've done. And what we'll do is maybe we'll link up your website off of our podcast show here, off the show notes. Anything else before we finish out, Caleb, before we're all done?
No, I mean, thank you guys so much for having me. I guess one thing, I am a faithful customer for all of your sponsors that you have on the on the show. So, I hit for the cycle with having all of them on the that I send money to every month, and they're all doing a great job. So
there's only 3 of them, so you can't be a cycle. It's good.
Yeah, but I'm a peer group, and then also
it is a cycle.
Yeah. I'm hitting on all 5.
No, listen, I'm glad to hear that. And obviously, I say this too on the podcast. I use all the sponsors that are on the podcast. I believe in them. And, we wouldn't have them on if we didn't believe that they offered a great service. And listen, so that's great feedback. And anyway, so you were going to say something, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, I was just saying, I'm just hoping you don't start bring on like Marlboro or something like that as the next sponsor.
Actually, I think Jack Daniels is going to be.
I was going to say some whiskey or something like that. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on, Caleb. And just a reminder, all the resources and topics that we talked about today are going to be available on the podcast website. Just take a look at pmpindustryinsider.com. Take a look under show notes. This show will be there. And as always, we appreciate any ratings and reviews that you can give us. And we ask that all complaining in general, just when life is down, that you call Dan. He really appreciates that. With that, we're going to sign off. We'll see you all next time. Take care.
Take care.
Bye. Thanks, guys.